Good afternoon. I'm Mary Beth Marsden, and welcome to GBMC's Greater Living. I'm coming to you live from my home, and we're having a very important and timely conversation today about a word that I think we hear every single day, either in social media or on the news. You may read it in the paper: vaccines. We're going to talk not only about the potential in the future of a COVID-19 vaccine, but also we're going to talk about the flu vaccine, pneumonia vaccine, and maybe various other questions about vaccines that you may be concerned about. We can take your questions on Facebook. We'll try and get those in live, and we have plenty of questions that we've gotten previously from people who are interested in having them answered. And we have the experts with us. And beginning now, we'd like to welcome Dr. Joseph Fuscaldo, who is the Faculty Physician Medical Director of Clinical Quality at GBMC. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So vaccines have been around a long time, but still a really kind of a hot button topic.
Absolutely. There's a lot in the media, as you mentioned, about vaccines now, and now may be a more important time than ever to really think seriously about your vaccine status and make sure that you are updated.
I think if COVID-19 has done anything for a lot of us, it is to make us think more deeply about our health in general, and to try and stay as healthy as possible, and obviously to try and avoid getting sick. A key way to possibly avoid getting sick is a vaccine, and the flu vaccine is the first one that comes to mind, but let's just talk about the whole vaccination area.
Sure. So as most people know, vaccines are designed to give us immunity to a particular disease process. Now, most of them are either viruses or bacteria, and that's where we've done most work in developing vaccines in the past. The body has a natural system where it will produce a response when it's exposed to what is a foreign or different substance than it's used to in the body. And what we do when we're developing vaccines is we imitate or take either a small piece or small chemical structure that resembles the real pathogen, the real bacteria or virus we're targeting. It could be a little piece of it. It could be something that is structurally similar. And then our bodies mount a response and get ready for the real battle, which would come when we indeed are exposed to that particular substance. Because the body will be ready, then we're likely to get either a very minimal or no appreciable symptoms from the vaccine if it goes well.
Is it fair to say that some vaccines are considered to be 100% effective and some are hit or miss?
Certainly some are better than others in terms of their effectiveness, or what we call the efficacy. It depends on several different factors, though. Some are what we call host factors. So an individual themselves being well and sort of able to mount a good reaction or immune response to the vaccine is one part of it. So older people, unfortunately, may not mount quite as strong a response, and therefore may not be quite as effective when they receive the vaccine. And that's why some vaccines are tailored specifically to older adults. But the second piece is we sometimes guess on the most common things that we're going to be encountering. And for example, the flu virus and flu vaccine is a combination of what we predict are going to be the strains that are going to be most likely to be in the area in that year. And so sometimes we get it really close. Sometimes we're not quite 100%. And in that case, the vaccine's effectiveness is not going to be as good as other years.
Yeah, it's true. Is it true? I've heard some people say that if they have the flu vaccine, and even if they maybe missed a little bit on the strain, if you do get the flu, the feeling is it will be less severe if you have had the vaccine.
There's a spectrum of or a continuum of symptoms that people get in terms of how bad of a clinical or how bad of the symptoms you get. So some people can, even if the flu vaccine doesn't work completely, it can make it a lot less severe, or your illness a lot less severe than it would have been. So by all means, the benefits outweigh the risks in these vaccines that we have that have been studied and are approved by the FDA.
I think one of the biggest arguments for some people who say they refuse to get a vaccine, and there still are those people for various reasons, but the biggest reason I've heard them say is that they don't want to get the virus injected into their bodies, or they're not sure it's a dead virus in the flu case, right? Not a live virus.
Well, and there is a live version of the virus that has been inactivated, and that's the one that we squirt in our nose. But most people don't get that one. Most people get something that is not live. And to your point, absolutely, there's no way to become truly infected through the virus. So we know that from that standpoint, you are risk-free. Now, that's not to say that you won't have a little bit of minor symptoms. Things like a little bit of muscle ache, maybe a really low-grade fever right after you get the vaccine. But those pale in comparison to getting the disease and the severity of getting the disease. And in the case of flu, people really just feeling horrible, feel like they get hit by a truck, achy in bed for several days.
Dr. Fuscaldo, obviously you believe in vaccines. Can you just remind us, I think many of us take them for granted a little bit, or don't give them the respect that maybe they're due, but can you remind us of how they have improved our lives over the years?
Absolutely. We've accomplished so much in the last couple centuries in terms of treating and preventing infectious diseases. People forget that just 100 or 150 years ago, the average human lifespan was a lot shorter, and many of that was due to infectious diseases. We have had a number of success stories in the virus, in the realm of viruses, including smallpox and polio, which we've effectively eradicated. But I encourage people not to let up, because we need people to continue to take vaccines seriously. As you mentioned, I am a staunch supporter of vaccines and the safety, because they've been studied. This is not something that's just been studied one time. All the vaccines that we currently have, with the exception of COVID, which I think we're going to talk about in a minute, have been extensively studied. And so I really reassure my patients to consider and reconsider. I try to coerce them a little bit. Sometimes people are on the fence, but it really, as I mentioned, the benefits outweigh the risks of the vaccines.
And why do you hear them being on the fence? Is it because they're worried about reaction?
Yeah, it's interesting. People are influenced by their own experiences. And we've had many people that come and say, well, one year I got the flu vaccine and I got sick, which is very possible that you did get sick. Now, it could have been a different virus. It could have been a strain that wasn't covered in the vaccine. So I don't want to call this person or saying the patient is saying something that's untrue, but I will tell you that you didn't get a real clinical syndrome from the vaccine. And those are the kind of things that really will influence somebody's decision, and it's hard to convince them otherwise. We have different reasons that people don't want to take the viruses. They don't like getting poked too much or getting actual immunizations. But I will say again, I just had my influenza vaccine. It was quick and almost painless.
It's pretty painless, actually, unless you really, really, really hate shots. But I have to talk about this because I have a close connection with the autism community, and there's even a name for the so-called anti-vaxxers. who believe that the vaccines are bad for their children and they're not going to get them and they're finding any way around it. And sometimes with autism, it's hard to argue with that because we really still don't know what causes it. And there are people who claim it happened at the exact time as a whole round of vaccines happened for their child. So what would you say to those individuals?
Well, I certainly think that everyone should evaluate, think through, and use the best science they have. As physicians, we're trained as scientists, and I know that there are people, I'm comfortable that there are people much smarter than I who have really scrutinized the evidence, and the pediatrics experts included in the childhood vaccines have really scrutinized the evidence, and there is no scientifically proven link that these vaccines are unsafe. Now, again, I think things can happen, and it's hard to convince somebody that things that happen in life are not chance happenings. But I feel very, very comfortable. I recommend to others what I would only recommend for my own family. And I have 2 children who have followed the vaccine schedule.
All right, now we turn to COVID-19. So that's probably the most talked about future vaccine right now in our lives. Where are we with it? Everybody has sort of a different timeline in their own minds. Every expert sounds a little bit different when they talk about the timeline. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is, as you said, one of the probably, maybe in our lifetime, the most crucial discussion of a vaccine and release of a vaccine that I know that I've seen to date. The experts vary in a few things in the timeline, like you mentioned, but most of the experts think that it is very feasible that we will have a vaccine soon. Again, there's going to be some differences in what does that mean by soon. I am comfortable that the process that we have set in place that we use for approving vaccines in this country will be followed. And that includes evaluating the vaccine for safety and for effectiveness. Those 2 big things, because we want to make sure, first of all, that we're not doing any harm to people by giving them the vaccine. But importantly, we want to make sure that we're doing some good with the vaccine, that it's effective. So many of you probably know or have learned that there's really 3 phases to the vaccine process. One, they usually start with trying it out in animals. Then they try it in smaller numbers in people to make sure that it's just safe. You're not having any major reactions. And I think most of us heard in the news that sometimes there'll be bumps in the road and the trial need to be paused while they look and study. But that's okay. This happens. We take a look at it. Was it the vaccine? Was it something else that made that person sick? The third piece, which may be the most important, is the phase 3 trials, which are much larger scale. And these give us more comfort in saying that, yes, not only did the vaccine pass the test in terms of being safe, but it also showed a difference, showed that the people who received the vaccine did better than those who did not receive the vaccine. And as I said, I'm comfortable that when we do get a vaccine that's improved through those channels, it will be a safe and effective vaccine. Now, the timeline is, as you said, is going to be interesting because some are saying we're going to have it sooner. Some are saying it's not. We may not have it for the masses until the middle of 2021. I don't think anybody knows for sure yet. I think when the vaccine will be available to us will depend on a few things. One is, what is your risk? I think they are working on a plan to kind of prioritize who gets the vaccine first. And rightly so, we want the people that are most at risk and those who are on the front lines dealing with a lot of the disease to make sure that they're protected. But eventually we want everybody to get the vaccine.
So as someone who believes in the process, as you clearly do, that by the time a vaccine is made available, it will be safe and effective. How do you battle the fact that there's a great deal more public skepticism since COVID-19 in relying on our government?
Yeah, I hope that the sense of mistrust that has surrounded some of our government health agencies is resolved, because I really think it's unfortunate. The physician community prides itself on following fact and science, and I really hope that this is something that improves, because throughout history we've trusted our health experts, the Center for Disease Control, the FDA, and other entities, and I hope and certainly am keeping my fingers crossed that that's going to be the case. Now, that being said, I think many people trust health advocates, people like Dr. Fauci, and I think if you don't trust anybody else, when Dr. Fauci tells us it's good to get this vaccine, I think most of us, including me, will be ready to roll up my sleeve.
Can you explain to us too, and I've never really been clear on this, when it comes to this vaccine, it's been, for medical researchers and labs, it's been all hands on deck, right? So many companies are working on it, so many countries are working on it. Does one vaccine come out of all of that, or do we have several coming from various locations?
We do. In fact, this is, again, unprecedented in that we have so many people working around the clock to develop this vaccine. There are going to be several vaccines before it's all said and done that are effective for COVID-19. One of the questions will be which one's the best, and I think that the company that gets it ready first may benefit the most in terms of getting their vaccine out there. But the different companies and the different scientists have chosen different mechanisms. There's different ways to induce or to stimulate our body's immune system to be ready for the COVID-19 virus. Most experts think that it's probably going to be a 2-dose vaccine. In other words, you'll have to get 1 dose and then follow it up in a month with another dose, which creates some extra interesting challenges, because if you decide to get your first dose at drugstore X and your second dose at Greater Baltimore Medical Center, we need to make sure we're tracking all that. So one of the things that they're working on is developing a database so that we can keep track of all that. I will say that it is very, very reassuring that the machinery and the resources have been put in place to get the vaccine ready to be mass produced. Usually we wait till the vaccine comes, then we kind of put the infrastructure in place to mass produce it. We kind of jumped out of order, and the factories are getting revved up, assuming that the vaccine is going to be ready.
So from your point of view, at what you believe it's going to be safe and effective, and I believe you, but what will tell you that we're at the point where the vaccine is a good one? Is it that a certain number of people have had it over a certain number of months and they've not had reactions and they haven't been able to get reinfected, or what will be sort of the benchmark for you?
Sure, and the same trials that the FDA will look at, these phase 3 trials, will be available. They'll be public knowledge to all of us, including those of us in the scientific community, to scrutinize. And we will certainly look at all of those and make sure that we're confident that the FDA uses their due diligence, which they always have, and we have no reason to believe that they won't before they put the stamp of approval on this vaccine. I think we're trying to keep the speed at which the process is going faster, but we can't compromise quality or safety in the vaccine. And to this point, I'm confident that that's going to happen. I know some people are worried about the politics getting involved, and let's just hope that that does not.
Yeah, and before we let you go, I just want to say thank you so much for all you've been doing. And I think just keeping us informed with a steady voice is sometimes half the battle.
Well, thank you so much, and I encourage everybody to do all the preventive measures, including great hand washing and social distancing. And I think we have the potential for this to be a tough season, a tough respiratory season. But if we all work together, I think it may be the other way around. We may see less flu this year because we're all doing the COVID precautions that everybody's gotten so used to. So I'm confident we're going to get through this, and I appreciate everybody working together on this. And thanks for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Dr. Fuscaldo, thank you so much for being with us.